how long would you say you've been working here full time?
So if I started CrossFit in 2010, I think, I probably did 1 year just straight without looking for the Olympic weightlifting help. So say 2011, I probably started coming here as a client.
So you coached there for 1 year, and then that was when you started to... So
yeah, we'll try to learn more Olympic weightlifting, and that's how I found you from like YouTube videos and that stuff. And then I wouldn't say, so that was at PBI, and then at some point I eventually started like working on Saturdays or something.
Yeah.
And then you went on vacation, and then I think I did more than just a Saturday. I think I did like morning sessions.
That was, I knew you were ready to handle it. And I probably needed a vacation.
Yeah.
So you coached a full year. So you started coaching CrossFit.
I didn't start. I did CrossFit for probably a year, and then I started picking up classes there.
Okay, so after about a year, you started coaching there?
And then I think once I was coaching, then I knew I wanted to get better at weightlifting myself.
How did that happen? All right, so take me through that. So you just joined a CrossFit program. How did that start?
How did it start?
Yeah, like what interested you in CrossFit? How did you get started in CrossFit?
Oh, so this is kind of like we talked about it before, but my cousins were all about it. I was vegan at the time. They were hardcore paleo at the time. And it was kind of just to prove I could do it, like on a vegan diet. So I did that, dropped in. There was like a free Saturday class. Got a good workout the first time, was hooked. So I kept coming. Like some of those workouts like killed me. It's kind of funny, like finishing last and stuff. So just trying to get better at it.
What were you doing for fitness before that?
Running.
Anything? Okay, when you say running, like how many times a week? How far are we going?
I was kind of like just trying to do 5Ks. So I would probably do mile, 2 miles, like just a mile, like hard, 2 miles hard. Maybe like 3 times a week.
Okay. Well, why? Well, how old were you at this? This was like what?
20.
Okay. So
I might have been doing some weights with my cousins at their house.
General,
and potentially
like bodybuilding type.
Yeah, pretty much bodybuilding. Yeah.
Look muscular, get a good pump.
It was kind of just like they were doing it, so I was doing it with them.
So then
I didn't really even like have a idea what I was doing at the time.
So then they started doing CrossFit.
Different cousins started doing
Different
CrossFit.
cousins.
Yeah.
So you got fit cousins.
Yeah.
So you got these cousins were doing just some general lifting, and then you had other cousins that were doing CrossFit.
Oh, and I ended up at this CrossFit because I thought I could handle any type of exercise, I guess. So I was searching CrossFit, and like this one, you have to do an intro, so I'm not doing that one. This one, it's like 3 intro, not doing that one. Consultation, not doing that one.
Because you've been running.
Yeah, so obviously fit. I was in shape, so I knew I was in shape. So this one was free Saturday class. Just go in. There's no like intro sessions. Just jump right in pretty much.
Get started. Dive in.
Pretty much, yeah.
So you went to the first session?
First session.
Did you get crushed?
Well, they scaled it was like Tabata squats. No, so as rope climbing is like a skill thing. And then the workout was like Tabata squats, hold it in the bottom for the rest part. But they just had me do like half of it. And like right after that, run a mile. So
that's right up your alley.
Yeah. And then
did you know the workout going in, or did you just go?
I think I just went because it was like Saturday was free.
So you got a pretty good draw.
Mm-hmm.
The squats were probably challenging, but then you had to.
Yeah, the squats was definitely were harder. The run was good, but it's like I did well in it, but like everyone else did a harder workout beforehand, so it kind of makes sense. But then the rope climb was fun. Like I've never climbed a rope, never tried to climb a rope before that, and was able to do it, pick it up. So that part was fun.
Gotcha. So that was the first workout.
Mm-hmm.
And then got hooked, signed up.
Well, they did every like Saturday was free, so I'm like I'm just gonna come on Saturdays for a while, and then eventually I signed up. How
many Saturdays we talking? 53, 54?
I forget, probably like a month of Saturdays, and then I eventually like bought a punch card or something.
Nice. And so then how often did you start going? Just periodically?
I would say at least 3 times a week
Okay. So
in the evenings.
started getting pretty fit. And then you went about a year, and then you started coaching.
Yeah, so I was like all in, learning stuff from YouTube. I think I got like CrossFit Journal membership.
You're that type of personality where you like
Yeah.
you start doing
Learn
something.
stuff on my own, yeah.
Yeah. So you were kind of all in learning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Trying to progress at the movements. I was always like smaller, so skinny, so everything weight related was more challenging. But like body weight stuff, I could pick up quicker. Yeah, just like being able to pick stuff up made me like it, because there's always new exercises and then trying to get better at them.
Gotcha. So novelty was fun. You started learning. That kind of like
Competitive, like doing well.
Yeah, checked a couple boxes for you. Then
Mm-hmm.
you started progressing. So then you're about a year in, and then you started coaching it. So like, what did that look like?
I just decided to get certified. I forget like how it actually went down.
I feel like a lot of gyms were doing like, if you go get certified and you cover classes,
Mm-hmm.
then they help you out with like memberships and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
so it's
that.
like
Was
free
there anything
membership.
like that? Yeah.
But I think I just wanted to get certified, and then I let the gym owner know, and then after a certain amount of time afterwards, he's like, okay, we could start maybe working you in to some classes.
Start learning how to.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so then you start coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did that look like?
So basically, the owner would write the workout, warm up workout, everything, and it's kind of just the coach's job to interpret it to the clients for the class and run the class, do the timer, encourage people, check form, just make sure people were doing everything right. The gym was smaller, so if it was like a large class, it'd be like 2 waves, since not everyone could do the workout at the same time. So kind of figuring out who's going in what wave, kind of letting people have something to do while they're waiting, or if they finish something to do.
So what did you feel adequately prepared? How did it go? Did you feel great? Were things running smoothly? Did you feel ill prepared?
I think it was pretty good. I think it ran pretty smoothly. And I did enough classes to understand what I had to do. And then the certification gave me more ideas about managing the class. And then anything I was learning outside there was just improving form, improving technique. So I think I had a grasp of that. But then it just became do I think these are the best workouts that they could be doing versus something else?
What made you think that? Just because of your outside research, the stuff you like?
I think partially coming here with the individualized stuff.
How did you get to that point?
Also, just seeing how other gyms would do more of a strength first and then Metcon. This one was kind of just whatever. There's just one WOD, so it might just be a strength day, or it might just be a Metcon day. So I saw value in that in terms of trying to get people stronger and then do conditioning too, instead of just one or the other. Because based on someone's schedule, they could either miss a lot of the strength portion.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that. So I think in a lot of CrossFit settings, some programs do it pretty well, and they hit most of their members with what they're looking for. But then some people, because of attendance and stuff, talk a little bit about that. You might hit the same movement.
Right. So I think in the certification, they teach you kind of to do gymnastics, weightlifting, and then just more of a single modality, running, rowing type of exercise. So if you're cycling through those, potentially, if your schedule is random, you might kind of come mostly on gymnastics days where you're just doing body weight movements, or vice versa, you're just doing strength movements, or you're just doing the cardio movements. So I was kind of seeing if also people were kind of cherry picking because no one would come to like a 5K day. So the workout would come like, I think the night before, and then people would sign up or cancel depending on what the workout is, because they didn't want to use a session up for something like they could do at home, even though they wouldn't do it at home, type of thing. Like, yeah, you're not really just going to run a 5K at home.
Yeah. Honor system.
Yeah.
I did.
So there's that aspect to it. So it's kind of like people just picking what they wanted versus maybe what they needed. You know, because like the bigger guys would always show up for like the heavy days, but maybe not for those longer workout days.
Sure.
So just understanding that, and like, why is someone really there? If they're trying to like really improve, then they got to do a little bit more.
So there were some limitations. And then, so how did you ultimately arrive that you wanted to pursue outside means, or how did you end up here?
To get better at the Olympic weightlifting. So I think I did a Kendrick Ferris seminar first, learned some technique stuff from him. Did that, I think, for a couple months.
Kendrick Ferris was a U.S. Olympian, and
like 2-time.
Yeah, what was that in like the early 2000s? It would have been 2004.
He's
I think.
probably like
Maybe 2008.
other than like right now, he was probably one of the top weightlifters for
at
America.
the time. Yeah. Okay. So you went to his seminar.
Got some tips from him. Then like 2 or 3 months of kind of just working through what I learned from that. Kind of plateaued with my lifts. Tried to find someone that could coach me more consistently, and then that's where I think I just Googled weightlifting, my zip code, or I searched on probably USA weightlifting, and then found like whatever was the closest gym, and then checked out the website, saw all the Chinese stuff, and I knew like from watching videos of Chinese weightlifting, like they're always at the top. So that was on the website, so that got me intrigued, and then the YouTube channel, seeing like little kids lifting more than me. I'm like, and then your snatch of like 146 or something.
So I was trying to think back to when you started. I
have the emails too, so
well,
I could pull it up.
That's kind of interesting. We had touched base several times, right? And it didn't, like, it wasn't working out in your schedule.
Yeah, because I was trying to come after work. So I worked with my dad at the time, and we drove together. So I was living at home. And depending on what when we would leave work, or if traffic, so it'd come home, and then I'd have to drive here, but it never really worked out scheduling wise.
Gotcha. But you
for
had
like weeks.
You had it in your head that you were going to make it in. You
Yeah.
didn't just kind of like, oh, it's not going to work out.
Right.
You kind of, yeah.
It's just like, it was just a matter of when, pretty much.
Gotcha. So
But yeah, it's funny.
So then you finally came in.
Yeah.
And what do you like recall anything that stood out, or like
basically you were just like, I would say like watching most of the reps, so I could get feedback on like every lift pretty much. I'm pretty sure Jacob might have been here, and he was lifting like good technique, and he was probably like a sophomore or something. Jacob Song.
Jacob Song.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Jacob. So Jake. Yeah.
He had good technique, and he was probably lighter than me, lifting more than me.
Sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
So that kind of got your attention.
For sure. Or like he was finishing up or something like that. Definitely like people here were like lifting good weights. So also in one of the videos, I'm pretty sure Arctic Monkeys was playing in the background, and I'm a big Arctic Monkeys fan. So that helped a lot. Be like, oh shit, these guys like the same music. So it's like good environment.
Gotcha. So the Arctic Monkeys was what?
Yeah.
Sealed the deal?
Kind of, pretty much. It might have even been on when I was here at some point, like in the first session.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure I probably like showed you videos, and you like gave me a lot of good information about it. So I'm like, yeah, okay, this guy like actually wants me to get better. Walked on my back, pretty sure first time. So I'm like, oh, this is different but good. What else? I don't remember how long. I can probably pull up an email to see like when the next time I came in was, but definitely like a lot of hands-on coaching and a lot of feedback on lifts.
You probably felt like you had a lot to go back to the drawing board. Like
Pretty
you
much,
came
yeah.
in, got some information, wanted to go.
Yeah. And then like as being a coach at a different gym is like kind of an investment in like getting my education up, so then I could use that to help the people at our gym, because Olympic weightlifting is so technical. Like I knew that I could bring that back and like teach them what I'm learning here.
Gotcha. So then you go back to your the different setting at your current gym, and then like what where was your head at? Because I remember you were telling me that you were trying to transition some people into doing additional
that probably came
coaching. So most of your people were doing group stuff, and then
everyone was, yeah.
But then you had people kind of like pressing you for additional coaching, and then that you're
that was like probably when I started covering classes here, because I was still coaching there while I was covering like 1 or 2 classes, and then I understood like the individual aspect of it, and like, okay, this could be valuable for the members at the other gym. So I'm like, talk to the owner, can we do this other class where I would write it, and then there's just like 1 class or 2 classes a week where if they signed up, I would kind of pretty much write them a specific workout.
So you could kind of see or had a sense that, so the way we were doing it when you first started was everyone had their own workout specifically designed. So you mentioned that Jacob was a younger kid who had originally started playing baseball and showed good coordination in the lifts. He actually got to the point where he was competitive in Olympic weightlifting, so that kind of became his sport. So everyone's workouts were individualized. So when you came in, your goal was Olympic weightlifting. Kind of walked you through as much as I could in that time. And then, so you take that back to your gym, you're kind of the group model, and then you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, how do I incorporate some of these things? You know, where does it fit? Where does it not fit?
Yeah. Also, I could be biased at times in terms of, so there's like a weightlifting course through CrossFit, and they do like a specific warm up. But then like if I'm learning something else, either through here that matches with what I've found like online, then I kind of gravitate more to like this being the right way, and like maybe that way is not the right way. So I didn't have too much belief in that system, I guess. So that probably kind of swung my bias to like whatever we were doing in here, or similar, like whatever I'm learning about like Chinese weightlifting or Russian weightlifting at the time.
I think for coaches, it's helpful when you're like, let's say you learn something and you go somewhere else and it's confirmed. That's helpful. That's
For
easy.
sure.
But you go somewhere and you learn something that might conflict with something you think you know.
Yeah.
And that puts you in a situation where you're trying to, okay, like how do I make sense of this? And you got to kind of like lean towards either credibility or, you know, I guess exercise science is a nice buzzword, but like you find yourself in the middle and you got to lean one way or the other.
It's interesting too, because when I got to CrossFit level 2, there was like a weightlifting portion of it, and one person in it, like I think recently did like some weightlifting stuff, but he was all about like specific technique of it because he learned it from something else. And like even the instructor was like, yeah, that's right, but we have to kind of teach it like this. In terms of like shoulder position or, you know, like locking out. So that's like an interesting way, because like for, I guess to scale it to the masses, there's maybe what is the simplest way, but maybe not necessarily the best way.
Right.
So yeah, stuff
I think some of the popular stuff at the time was like squat on your heels, really push your knees out. Some of the overhead positioning
external
that they were teaching,
show the armpits.
Doesn't go in. Some of that stuff is meant for doing a lot of high rep, but Olympic weightlifting isn't necessarily a high rep sport. So,
and it's also like that was for general population. So maybe internally rotating your shoulders like was messing too many people up that have office jobs, and they're not dedicated weightlifters that started at a young age too. So there could be many reasons for it, you know. Just like what works for most people.
Well, and I remember having that conversation with you too, is if someone's here for fitness and they're in their 50s and they work an office job, is snatching really the right dose? And that was when I could tell that you were getting to the point where you could see some of the inconsistencies and some of the things that weren't aligning that you were seeing with, you know, like what is the best practice. And I think that's what we're all ultimately trying to get at.
I think another thing when I first came out, I probably asked like what I could do in the meantime, like in between my next session. So I know at one point Tim was trying to like explain to me like squat twice a week. Probably, I think he was trying to like tell me about prolepins, but I didn't even understand it at the time, of like doing 25 reps like 5x5 or something.
So that was me. You do a volume and a intensity.
Yeah.
I remember that conversation. That I remember.
Okay.
Because I remember telling you that, and then you report back with progress.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So for me, that's what's fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I would impart, a lot of times you tell somebody something to go do, and they may or may not do it. You were reporting back, hey, my squat went up 10 kilos this week. And so for me, that was fun. That was exciting.
It was definitely like beginner stage too, because prior to coming here, after Kendrick Ferris, I'd basically just try to max out like once a week a lift, but I wouldn't like try to squat or like actually get stronger, just like basically do a max clean or do a max snatch. So then I learned like the importance of getting my legs stronger and squatting more. And then that's when like the lifts were going up more consistently, because I was still trying to like max out just to test it. So squatting more frequently definitely helped, and then just cleaning up the technique and getting better mobility as I kept doing the lifts for sure.
Well, I remember you made a pretty cool video of your progress at the time. And yeah, that was what was fun for me. So you'd come in, ask a lot of hard questions, go back, do the homework, come back in, check in, and you were always like making good, steady progress.
Yeah. So cool. Like beginner gains too helps, like keeping you like just inching the progress all the time, keeps you wanting to come in.
Yeah, for sure. So then, now you're still at the CrossFit gym. You're coming here. Now you got a little bit of this conflicting information, trying to make sense of it. And here we are today.
Yeah, so we did that little individualized program at the CrossFit gym for however long, and then I don't really remember the shift I started, but at some point it was like, yeah, I'm gonna leave here to do more sessions, or leave the CrossFit gym to do more sessions at SAA coaching wise. So I told the owner of that, and he's like, yeah, I knew it was gonna happen at some point. And I think there was like 9 a.m. classes I was doing here to start with, and then I don't even remember, to be honest. I think I was still working with my dad, and then at some point it was enough sessions here to like kind of be the same pay. So it's just, then I switched here full time.
To transition into working here full time. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was like doing the shirts. I feel like that was like not so much after I started. Because I remember I did the barbell shirts. I kind of like made that new logo. I think I asked you if I could do it. So then I got all those made.
So you were working logistics. So your family's company is logistics.
Freight forwarding, yeah.
Okay. So managing.
I didn't really do anything, to be honest. It was not a fun job.
You were a figurehead?
It was weird. I think one person quit, and then it was open. So the job I had before that was in a mail room, which also wasn't very fun. So this was for Zurich Health Insurance. Basically, you just open mail and like sort it. So whatever department, right? This was like from 4 a.m. to 2 p.m. So waking up early. So I was used to the early schedule, and that wasn't fun. So basically, when I had the opportunity to get the same pay at my dad's job, I took it. So I left there to go there. But that was basically being his assistant.
Weren't you doing like a lot of spreadsheets and Excel? Not even.
I wasn't doing a lot of anything, to be honest. It was more like be his assistant, but he didn't like really need an assistant. So it was kind of basically just sitting there and learning CrossFit stuff and watching weightlifting videos, listening to Joe Rogan podcasts. And there's like some stuff I'd have to like go to customs and get signatures, or basically like going around getting signatures for stuff. And then we did have like a little warehouse. So I set up like a bench, rings, and then I could basically do workouts back there like during lunch. So I remember I was like, found like a free squat rack, picked it up, set it up. But this is when Tim was at Muscle Driver. I like asked him which barbell to get. So like, should I get a bearing barbell? Should I get a bushing? So I got a Muscle Driver set. I think it was like 100 kilos or something, and was just like doing squats and bench in the back during lunch, practicing muscle ups, practicing double unders. Yeah, so kind of taking advantage of not having to do anything while I was there to sort of work out and stuff. It was kind of cool because like they would I could like, oh yeah, so I was still vegan at the time, so they like give me money to go to like the fresh market and buy food, and I'd make smoothies for everyone. So stuff, it was like good at the time, but it was like not really rewarding. I didn't do much. It's kind of like just sitting there.
Well, so hearing you tell that doesn't sound so good. My viewpoint on the situation, so was when you first were hanging around the gym, you would start contributing little like odds and ends.
Yeah, I remember probably one of the first things I did was, because when you were on vacation, it's like everything was written down on like the whiteboard, and you would like send me a picture of a piece of paper, and like so this is like what this person needs to do, and then I would write it on the whiteboard. So I'm like, what? And at the time I knew about like Google Sheets. I'm like, we could probably put this on the projector, or on, because there's TVs. Actually, it started with like the clock.
So for some people that might not understand, so this was a sheet of paper with lines drawn across it, just basically like a tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
And I would write everyone's name. And if you could imagine, I think at the time we'd have like 30, 35 people a day. And I would sit down and I would write handwritten on a sheet of paper each person's workout. And then so we had 2 gyms. We had 2 locations running under this system. And I would text pictures to the trainers working at each location to then transfer onto either a whiteboard or a chalkboard. So the system was a little outdated.
Archaic, yeah.
And I didn't know any different. And so here comes Kurt. And so, I mean, you didn't really make it sound very...
Well, first it started with, because there was no clock and people were like doing planks or whatever. They were doing something and there's a time component, but they didn't know what time it was. So I'm like...
You started to broadcast the clock
onto the TV. So then I'm like, well, if we could do this, then we could broadcast a spreadsheet. So at the time, it could have been Excel, but I'm like, Google Drive, everyone could write this at home.
It's got a wireless component.
Update. Yeah.
Right. So then you transitioned us onto Google. So then we could do it from home. And then there were more workouts could be written, transmitted. So you're downplaying it like, oh, I didn't do anything when I was at work. But what I saw was that your ability to process information and come up with like good, like simple solutions and strategies to problems was very appealing to me because I was swimming in the amount of workout writing and little things like that I was just kind of set in my ways, and was definitely willing to be open to suggestions. So you started kind of like contributing these little solutions here and there. I'm like, man, this dude's sharp. So you were invested in the business model, like mentally, and then you had all these little sharp solutions to all these problems, solving the logistical problem of how do you communicate workouts to, I think at the time we had maybe 100 to 150 clients altogether. So doing that on a sheet of paper through text message, I don't even think I had a smartphone at the time.
BlackBerry for sure.
Yeah. So you kind of like kicked us into the 21st century. And then that kind of helped our culture to embrace, okay, how do we communicate this information more clearly to a big group of people so that we can scale this information, and here we are today. But to me, that was kind of how that unfolded.
I like to think of myself as a problem solver, so it's like if I could see something, I'm like, I don't understand it, and you're open enough to be like, yeah, that makes sense, not like, oh, this is the way it's got to be since it's the way it's been. So you saw the value that it could bring by switching everything more digitally.
Yeah, and that was kind of where we saw eye to eye. Like the goal is to always be getting better, improve the product, improve the solutions, make our lives easier, make everyone's lives easier. And so I saw that behavior right away. So it was helping to try to bring that out in you has gotten us to this point.
Well, then I think when it was offered more sessions, I think that's because maybe you could talk about it. So Megan left, and I think Tim left almost like around the same time. So then like you needed another coach. It seems like it.
Yeah. Well, timing's important. So we had, I think at that time, I think we had maybe 5 trainers, and then you were on the verge of like helping out. We were getting interns at the time too, so there was like a pretty steady flow. Business was good. And then at the same time, 2 trainers. Tim went to muscle driver.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, my brother, had an opportunity to go lift in like a professional type setting where everything was paid for. You had stipends, you had living quarters. He wanted to pursue that opportunity, so we lost Tim. Megan, my sister-in-law, she was, I think, engaged at the time or about to be engaged and was moving back to live with her now husband. So we were losing 2 of our key trainers at the same time, and you were right for the picking.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, like, here's an opportunity. Are you interested? And then that kind of was a perfect transition. So for me, it's interesting because like everyone's skill set is a little bit different. You know, Tim, charismatic, people person. Megan was very like consistent. What's a good way to describe that? Very diligent with her work behavior. So just real good with the kids, real good with adults. Always gave you like a really good, consistent effort. And then, like I said, your skill set was more like solving problems, mass communication, logistical problems of communicating workouts. And then you were kind of pushing me from the intellectual side. So that was, you know, it definitely helped push things forward. So I embraced that rather than,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I didn't think I had all the answers. So it kind of became a good synergy, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So here you are.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you still here?
That's a good question.
What keeps you here? What keeps you here? Like, what got you excited to start, and then how has it evolved?
Well, I was all in weightlifting, so to be here was better. Definitely better than waking up at 4 a.m. Even like after the mail job, my dad also started pretty early, so it's like always waking up at 4 a.m., which was nice to get a break from that, even though I did eventually come to be like the AM coach, which was 5 a.m.s. Just like basically collaborating. I know like we would meet once a week at least at your house and like just talk. This was even before CrossFit, so we didn't have the CrossFit name, so it wasn't even like, maybe I started full time when we got like the fitness side up. Because I guess that was kind of my sell. I had like the fitness experience, like coaching at a CrossFit gym. We'd be like always collaborating about workouts or like how do we do this business and all this stuff. So that was cool, like just being part of something like where your input matters, opposed to just like being a robot at a mail job or just like wasting your time being assistant for someone that doesn't need an assistant type of thing, kind of just getting a paycheck or something.
So you were excited about the fitness aspects and the
Mm-hmm.
weightlifting aspects and all that kind of stuff that got you excited to maybe take a chance on something. But then as you felt valued, your input mattered, the changes that you wanted to implement, your perspective, like the evolution of everything is kind of what kept you.
Right. Also, I was still just like trying to figure stuff out in my own life. I think I was at the time trying to be like a dietitian, so I was taking classes for that. It's actually funny because I had this like tough organic chemistry class at the time, and I was like making good weightlifting progress, so I pretty much dropped it because I'd rather just do weightlifting instead. So that kind of like
You could have
veered
been a
me
chemist.
off. To be honest, it was probably just an excuse not to take that class because I was not doing well in it. So I dropped that class for it.
Chemistry's terrible.
But yeah, I was kind of just like trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life.
I mean,
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Everyone's trying to figure out.
So yeah, I had like the dietitian aspect. I'm like, okay, this will like make sense in a gym setting. But then it was kind of just like going with what was presented with me at the time of taking this opportunity and kind of just seeing what happens with it.
How has it evolved? I mean, so like again, so enthusiasm gets you started. Progress keeps you interested, and then here we are today. Like what do you find rewarding today? Like what are some
Definitely
of the finer
like
points?
learning. I like learning about people. So whenever there's like someone new, I just like trying to ask them questions about their background, what they do, what they like, how they got there. That's probably one of the top things I like about working here is just talking to the people, which I'm conflicted with because they're here to work out and not talk to me. So, but obviously there's like some aspect of like just making it a good environment for them. But yeah, definitely learning about people and life, like their life and how they got there. And people, a lot of our members have interesting stories. Even though it might not be interesting to them, I think it's interesting.
So that's an interesting evolution. So when you start, it's like you're all about the fitness and the technique and you're kind of like a new enthusiastic trainer. And then as you go, you start to become just like more fascinated with people.
Well, especially since the way we do it is individualized workouts. So it's like it gives you that opportunity because you're not like running a class in the sense that you have to like take people through a warm up. You have to take them, explain the workout. We have a lot of members that have been here as long as I've been here. So like 5, 6, 7 years that pretty much have most of the technical aspect down. So like once they have their workout, they know what to do. They could kind of run with it, and that gives you opportunities like just ask them questions about their day, their weekend, what they're up to, learn about them as a human, instead of just being totally focused on them working out.
X's and O's.
Yeah. So I like that aspect, and you've been supportive pretty much with anything I've done, like in terms of doing the t-shirts, trying to change the website. I think that was one of the things I did earlier on, like this website needs to overhaul, so changing that.
Well, you have a pretty creative, you were graphic design originally, and then you have a creative
for
bone
sure
that needs to be expressed, and I could definitely see that. And sometimes like you made a good point in the last little bit you were saying, is that sometimes you're here as a trainer and you're watching people work out and you're fascinated in them, but they're here to work out. So you feel like you're interrupting, or
exactly.
you're changing the dynamics of their workout by maybe talking to them, or maybe they don't feel like talking to anybody, So
right.
There is it's a strange dance where you're like interested, but is it too much?
Right. Yeah, that's because we did that post of what's your favorite client. Mine is ones that are willing to talk and like open up about what their lives are like and what their experiences of anything.
Right. Which is fun, but then also you got busy people with kids.
Yeah.
And you're at 75%
so I never
of your max heart rate.
necessarily try to put, you could tell like when you start to talk to someone, if they're giving you like longer answers, they're that type of person, or if they're kind of quick to it, they have a purpose of just work out, get in, get out.
Right. And they might not mean it personally, but my point was going to be that sometimes when the work's already done, so we spell out the workouts pretty well in advance, pretty detailed what we want people to do. So sometimes you being there is a little redundant.
Right.
So sometimes
I feel like
challenging. Sometimes it's not.
I'm just standing here watching people work out. So
that's where I think the creative aspects for you, especially like.
Also selfishly, like I don't want to be bored. So if I could learn something from someone or like find out something, that's a benefit to me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I just cause problems.
To each their own. But yeah, it's always interesting. I've learned a ton of stuff just from talking to the members and about everything.
Yeah.
Everything and anything.
That's
like
what's
what
cool.
It's like to be a parent and like what they think about like what's going on in the world, or like their job. We have a lot of business owners. Like, how did you end up where you're at? What was that journey like?
And you forge relationships, and then it's a little bit above. You hear that term like culture, relationship. It does. It kind of like you get to know somebody, the individual.
It's kind of crazy if you think about it. Like, other than the people you live with at home or work with, I would say we're like number 3 of like how often someone is seeing us. Like 3 times a week, 5 times. Like,
right.
There's like a big interaction. So that's why it is important to kind of like find a place you enjoy working out or training at. If you like the people, for sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Did you ever in your wildest dreams think you'd be here 8+ years when you first started?
I don't think I was thinking that far ahead, but probably not. I think I was like, okay, I'll do this while I finish school, and it took me a long time to even finish school, to be honest. But that was kind of a waste of money in reality, because background. So I didn't end up doing dietitian because I'm like, yeah, I stopped taking that organic chemistry. I think I might have just stopped taking classes in general, and then was just working here. And I'm like, okay, I could get an associate's. I think honestly, I was getting burnt out at the gym at one point from doing like early sessions. I think I was like working 6 days a week type of thing. So I'm like, okay, I'll go back to school and then I could get like a different job. Finished that associate's degree, had the opportunity to like work somewhere else. The internships that I did for it were like shitty. And I think I even told you like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this instead. And you're like, well, how much? I think my reasoning was like the pay or something. So you're like, how much are they going to pay you? And you basically said we'll pay you the same. So I stayed, which was a good thing because that would have been pretty shitty. Basically a lab job of just being in a lab for 8 hours a day and repetitive stuff.
See, well, that to me is interesting. I mean, maybe
also, we could go into my personality a bit because we've had some of this before. Like, I think a good lesson for people is just like to bring. I feel like some people think they don't have a say, or like whatever they say is going to be taken wrong, and like, or at least this was me. So my whole thing was, instead of saying how I want things to be, I'll just totally up and leave and do something else. Opposed to like, okay, maybe not doing the morning shift, or maybe having like 2 days off.
Speaking up, yeah. Saying what you need to say.
I mean, because honestly, there's nothing like, either you're going to leave anyways, so it doesn't matter what the response is, or something changes and then you're happier and you're in the same spot. So
communication. Well, it's taught me a lot also in the same, like in my mind, nobody works for me. Mm-hmm. You work with me. Right. We work together. There's no hierarchy or, mm-hmm. one's better than the other. And so that's kind of how I look at it. And to your point, the selfishness, I'm learning from you. I'm using your strengths, and you're so mm-hmm. you lean on me for my strengths. I lean on you for your strengths, and that's kind of how I look at it. So your skill set was very valuable, and I think along the way, so having lost some trainers in the past, mm-hmm. I think one of the things that you have pointed out to me too was like we went through a period where I think it's normal at any job where there's resentment, and like you said, this is not ideal for me. This is really hard. And, mm-hmm. You might think you're trying to do the right thing, but you're just building more resentment by keeping your mouth shut.
For sure. That definitely was the case.
Yeah, and then you end up at a point like, hey, we could easily solve this problem if we just talk about it. But mm-hmm. That's where like some ego gets involved and like, oh, I can handle anything, and then you're just pushing yourself further into resentment. Right. And I think we've been able to communicate through some of that stuff. And it's like.
And then it's definitely like overthinking, like, you're building different scenarios in your head of like, but you're never really like trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes of like, okay, that's maybe why it's this way. Because there's some definite resentment for a while from me towards you for like a couple months of like not talking to each other. So
it is, strangely, it's a normal, it is, there seems to be just like a hierarchy with people in their jobs, and it's, mm-hmm. It's hard to, your job is not always perfect. And what's interesting is our jobs are our passions. Mm-hmm. So now you're like mixing your hobby and your passion with work. And so there's like those lines get blurred. And then two, there's like a friendship aspect that gets mm-hmm. blurred amongst it. Like we used to just spend a lot of time together. Yeah. And then there's that aspect too, and that gets blurred. So it's like you have to work together, but it's kind of how I look at it. And then like it's taught me a lot over the years too. Like I heard a good analogy. It was almost like a farm co-op where like all the farmers use the same systems, but they all kind of like coexist. And if something needs to be fixed, then when they kind of like come together and mm-hmm. fix what needs to be fixed, but we all need to use this kind of the gym as the co-op, and then we all kind of coexist together and use our skills to, mm-hmm. So everybody gets a little bit further along. And if you're successful, I'm happy for you. And if I'm successful, hopefully you're happy for me.
Yeah. I think that all even started with like when we stopped having meetings regularly. I think like for me, it was more important to be like productive. So it's like, but the relationship of meeting all the time was more important from like preventing like that resentment period, because I was like doing other stuff too. Like we'd do the like dog walking and that thing. So it's like, okay, well, if we're not being productive writing workouts while we're meeting, then it's like, what's the point of the meeting? So we stopped having meetings. And then that kind of just like built with when the pay structure changed, that kind of like made me upset, but it like made sense, even though that kind of like, it upset me, but it made sense in the end. So like that kind of made me angry. So then still not talking. And then eventually it's like, I think I just mentioned like, yeah, that's why it was, well, like I just came clean, like why I was upset.
So that's interesting.
Probably Radka helped that too, like just talking it out.
That's interesting how you interpret something one way versus another way. So like when the meetings stopped, I was under the impression that you had a lot on your plate, and that having a meeting on top of that was just me asking more of your time. Yeah. And so I wanted to be respectful of your time and like, hey, if you can do this in your own time, you know, like I don't want to make you come physically stand here and, you know, kind of go through this checklist. Like if you can do that when it's reasonable for you, like I was trying to be respectful of that. And maybe you were reading into that a little bit differently. Well,
I'm pretty sure I like canceled a couple meetings because I had to like either walk a dog or something. So
that's it. Well, I do think it's important. And again, like prioritize, like we tell clients that, like prioritize your exercise, like prioritize, like ultimately our ability to work together is important. So we should prioritize it. Like carve out the hour a week or, you know, every 10 days or whatever, just to like make sure that that's taken care of and you check that box. Pay structure too, to anybody that's listening that has a job. I think people look at,
to be fair, when you match the pay of the lab, it like didn't make any sense. Like it was definitely more than I should have been getting paid for like the work I was doing.
Hold on. That's a whole nother. No, so like my workplace behavior is extremely limited. I could never work for somebody. That's part of what I like. And I try to create that same scenario. You don't work for me. You work for yourself. We work together. But like, I think people look at the situation that they're in and they think that they have no say. They have no influence on their environment. And from my perspective, I wanted your skill set. And so if you're going to take your skill set and walk away, it's like, well, hold on. Like what do we need to change? What can I do for you? And instead of coming to the table with like this, hey, like I'm here, you know, what do you know, with this real like standoffish negotiation, it's like if you just tell me what you want. And I think sometimes people feel uncomfortable to put it on the table, like here's what I want. And so when you had reached a point where you needed to get paid more, I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to get paid? And you told me, and I said, okay, well, here's the amount of work. If you need to get paid, like
this is what you got to do.
Yeah, I'll take a pay cut so you could get paid, but then here's what needs to be done. And so I think there was a lot of like learning or just understanding that took place during that time frame. Was like you were getting paid that, but then your life quality changed and the amount of time that you were spending and hours. And
I also had to like almost justify it. So I'm like, okay, I'll do this. I'll do these extra things. I'll do these classes now or that type of stuff, which probably wasn't worth it at the time. And that was kind of like the burnt out part of, because then when we redid the contract and the pay changed and then it's like everything stays the same, I'm getting paid less. I was like, okay, I don't know about this anymore. But in reality, the new pay structure was what I thought it should have been in the first place anyways. But it's like you're at this one number, and then since it's different now, it's like, okay, this
what
sucks.
Do you mean?
Of like more percentage versus like just a salary, like a fixed salary.
Oh, like percentage? Yeah. Well, and that's another thing that I think it's important for trainers to understand too, is like you do have to kind of understand numbers and like what's coming in, what are you directly responsible for, what does that ultimately equal. We have that conversation a lot. Like Facebook is an important tool and you need to have a presence to bring in new clients, but it's really hard to quantify what a Facebook post does in terms of very rarely does somebody come in and they say, hey, I saw that one Facebook post and I had to sign up. Because then it's like, oh, you know, that client is here because of that Facebook post that you did. So a lot of the behaviors that take place here, it's hard to quantify. So there are some formulas and stuff and percentages that bigger box gyms like Lifetime use and personal training studios. But like one of the things that I always take into account is if someone's trying to make this a career versus like, I'm just going to be here for a couple of years and I just want to make some side cash. Those are two very different scenarios. And so like trying to help, you know, guide you to the other side of that, because I knew that like you could be very successful in this and then like continue moving forward. So we just had to keep moving the needle. And then so you were kind of torn between like I need to make more, but then like lifestyle. So money's important.
I'm all about the lifestyle.
Well, and I think you had to come to that realization. And so I think that was part of the exercise was like to make more money, you're going to be jeopardizing other things. I just had an interesting client come in, totally put his health on the back burner for like 6 years. I said, when was the last time you broke a sweat? He said, probably like 7 years ago. That's eye-opening. And so here's a guy who like, for his work behavior, he totally put his health and fitness on the back burner and has had several surgeries in the time frame. And you know, you could see that he'd reached a point where like, okay, I need to switch my focus. And I think a lot of people, you know, you only live once, and how much money do you need to live versus too much, and where do you know, everyone's working on that. Like you said, trying to figure out some things myself. I think everyone's trying to figure those things out. You're not alone there, but especially in this industry, you know, because your time is valued, and it's hard to put a precise dollar amount on the time. You know, even you setting up this podcast today, it's like
it's like an hour.
Yeah, it's time invested, it's energy invested. It's something that you're
but I enjoy doing it, so it's like it doesn't really matter to me.
Right. You're creatively invested. No one's telling you to do it. So it's there's an art form to that too, where it's not just there's no checklist on how to pay a trainer. I mean, some people might pretend, but I would argue that how are you going to retain somebody? So
well, just going back to like being supportive of even like doing this and like all the video stuff I've been trying to do and being on camera, willing to be on camera. Not everyone is willing to be on camera, so just like going with the flow and seeing what happens with this. I mean, you believe that whatever I believe is right in a sense, so that's kind of maybe your thought process. If I think it has value, then it has value. Yeah,
and I'm willing to explore. It's, you know,
there's
and
nothing to lose by trying.
Our end goals align. So, and there's alignment with, you know, trying to better your life, you're trying to better mine. And if those all coincide, then again, it's like a cooperation. I think you had a good quote. There was like you got some good one-liners every now and again.
I learned that in the class.
What was the one with the cooperation?
I think it's like both people lose, but coordination, or I don't remember. Basically, like compromise. Both people lose, but
you say it. Say it cleanly.
I don't even remember.
In a compromise,
both people lose.
In a compromise, both people don't get what they want.
In a compromise, both people don't get what they want. What's the next part?
And in cooperation,
both people.
Everybody gets what they want.
So everyone wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's important to consider. So it's like, where's the common ground? You know, and it's okay to what's in it for me, because if I can't answer that question for you, you know, it's like the same thing. I ask you periodically, hey, you getting paid enough? Is your life okay? When's your next vacation? Yeah. You know, stuff like that. It's like, and then you may or may not answer, and you may or may not hate my guts.
When's your next vacation?
Next vacation?
You need to go somewhere soon. It's been a while.
I think we're going to Lake Geneva, middle of August, for like a long weekend.
It's September.
Or what did I say? August?
Yeah.
October.
Okay. See, you do need a vacation.
I do need a vacation. We have to continue to provide value to the clients. And I think sometimes gym owners, trainers can get to a point where there's resentment between the client and the gym owner and client, or the gym owner and trainer. So that relationship has to stay healthy too. It's like we have to continue to show them value. they have to continue to value what we're giving them.
Mm-hmm.
And the experience has to continue to be something that people are willing to pay for. And when everything's in harmony, you know, that's when a gym is functioning well. But then when things are like disadvantageous in any way, shape, or form, I think you ran into some of that with like CrossFit. And that's one thing that you and I really try to avoid. It's like if somebody needs a certain time, we try to like make sure we provide it. Or if something like really doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while we'll get people that like, hey, are you ever going to bring that Tuesday class back? Or, you know, but usually, I mean, most people can work into what we have. And if not, we try to come up with the right solution. And it's the same thing. If you're suffering, let us know. We'd be more than happy to try to solve that solution. You know, like some people they come in off hours. Some people we offer personal training now. So we're always trying to solve people's problems because that's just kind of how we are.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like learning instead of just opening up a new time that one person comes to. It's like, is it really worth it? Or are we going to resent them for like taking our day off? Now we have to come in and then.
Right.
For what? You know.
And from the other perspective too, like.
Or they might resent us for having a 3-day work week. So who knows?
Right. Well, too. And then like having the right equipment,
mm-hmm.
you know, like every once in a while we'll double people up at a station and, you know, or like, that hole in the wall is kind of ugly to stare at and, you know, stuff like that where that door kind of swings both ways and we have to like make sure that we're, you know,
mm-hmm.
avoiding resentment from them as well. So, and that's important. So when those relationships are all kind of in harmony, everything's good.
Yeah.
You know, when you're happy taken care of, I'm happy taken care of, they're happy taken care of. It's like a great cooperation as opposed to all these compromises being made on everybody's part.
Mm-hmm.
And then that, you know, for me, that's super rewarding. Not only that like some of our clients have been here for like 11, 12 years, but that you've been here for,
mm-hmm.
you know, 8+ years. It's like, must be doing something right. Sometimes you don't really know what you're doing right, but
mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the guiding light, like just provide value.
Yeah, people are sticking around, then there's something's right for sure.
Provide value and then just continue to try to improve.
What's your biggest things you've learned by owning a gym?
Biggest things I've learned? I do feel, I mean, it's like cliche, but like you said, like the relationships. And I do really take it personally. Like when somebody is willing to spend their money at your facility, it's like it almost feels like a strange compliment. Like they really like, or I always feel like taken aback. Like, you sure? Like this is the play? You know, like, so I kind of take that personally. Like, can I provide what I'm saying I can provide? And so to have some element of success, and then to like, you know, just things that you never see. You know, you've become a big part of our life, you and Radka, and, you know, just, I don't know, seeing your guys' life evolve is rewarding in a strange way. It's like, and then that too, like, I think one of my only good redeeming traits is that I can see people's strengths, and like maybe more so than they see in themselves, and I don't give up on it. It's like I have like a tenacity that like, so for you, when I saw your strengths, I'm like, that's a strength, whether you know it or not. I'm just going to keep like pushing you in that direction, and whatever happens. But that's kind of how I look at it. I always have more questions than answers.
Yeah.
So like that's fun for me, being surrounded by a lot of interesting people, and then like always trying to be able to improve what we're doing, and you know, could always be a little bit better.
Right.
Try to learn more. From an educational standpoint, like what you're kind of like more in like the marketing and videography right now, but like what are you interested in from like an educational standpoint?
In terms of what?
Life in general. Being a trainer.
Being a trainer?
Does it feel weird to say you're a trainer? Do you feel like you're training people? Is that an accurate description?
Like I'm training people.
What do you feel like you do? What is the value
I feel
you
like,
provide?
well, when I write a workout, I try to make it so that there's as little questions as possible.
Well, that's interesting. So that's evolved a lot. And that I think to say that louder, clearer, like I see that in the way that you write workouts. And that's been interesting for me too, was when technology wasn't as available, you as the trainer kind of like had to absorb all the gaps. So like when you first came in, I had to like teach you, and it was very hands-on. And then now with technology, it affords you the opportunity to communicate a lot of information just without having to necessarily be there.
Yeah.
And I think, so to your point, what you just said, I see that a lot in the workouts that you write, that people become very self-sufficient, that they're progressing without needing to ask so many questions in a way. And not that questions are bad, but like they just follow what's written out for them, and then they progress. And the progress is like tangible and real, and it's different from what I had to do to build the business. And so it's kind of like a cool evolution to see how now somebody can just be like, they think it's just an app telling them what to do. They don't realize that there's like someone behind the scenes that is putting thought, effort, education, reading, years of dissecting books, going through the process firsthand. It's going into that workout writing. They just think it's like some app spitting out workouts.
I mean, you've mentioned to me that people don't realize that we write the workouts, but I guess people do ask like, who writes the workouts? So if it says my name on it, then I wrote it. If it says your name, you wrote it. Or there's a collaboration of both of us working on something to figure out what's the best for a specific person. Because people I write for, I don't necessarily see them do it. So you might see something and then bring it up to my attention, and then I'll adjust the workout based on your feedback that I got from you for that person, and vice versa. So
that's important too. Yeah, people. So the collaboration is like, hey, I noticed this in this person's workout, or what do you have that person doing, or maybe try this. And I think
it kind of keeps us both like, I'll like start to see something that you're writing for people, and like, oh, okay, then ask you about it later. What's this new thing, new exercise? And then it expands my knowledge. And
that I think is cool. And the continuing education aspect. So like you're reading things, seeing things, interpreting it, putting it into action. And so that's like your take. And then same thing with me. And then, I'll see people that you're writing for, and oh, that's a good combination. I think I told you had like a wall ball slam combo that you gave a couple people, and I'm like, man, that's a perfect combination. Like to visually see it, I could see why that makes sense. And from trainer to trainer, it's like, it's like a tip of the cap, like nicely done, Curtis. Like I'm gonna use that one. That's a good one. Yeah. And so there is like direct collaboration, and then there was, because for a while there we were actually like, you would write someone's Monday workout, I would write their Wednesday.
This was before True Coach.
Yeah, that was when we were still on Google Drive, so there was like actual.
Yeah, so basically whoever was coaching that session would write the workouts for that session. Yeah,
and sometimes we would be like perfectly in sync, and then other times it was like I thought I would be interpreting something that you were doing, and so it's like we've evolved quite a bit with the workout writing.
For sure.
It's cool to like look back to at some of those. For the longest time, we had those old sheets.
Yeah, there's just like folders of paper.
Physical paper, and then like we still have a huge Google Drive library, and now we have like True Coach, and we're building out programs, and so it's super evolved. And then now I feel like things are evolving from the app standpoint. So that was kind of how we ultimately adopted True Coach. Was, can you communicate with people remotely? I think people, we'll have to ask for more feedback, but I think people like seeing their weeks like laid out. Like, what do I have to do this week? It might affect what they wear or how they
eat, what they do the night before. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I think there's that aspect of it too. What's the next evolution of this place?
The next evolution. I was actually just thinking of that. Because you have all this like Peloton stuff and work from home or workouts from home. So I mean, technically not impossible to like have a channel on like Roku or something. So if we had like stretches people could do at home built into that, and then they could basically turn on the TV, and then there's one of us walking someone through like a stretching sequence or some mobility stuff, or maybe a vacation workout or at home workout. It's almost like you like, and I mean, technically anyone can have like their own channel, even like bigger in the sense of like a YouTube channel where it's like you have your own app thing. So there's like HBO, there's Netflix, and then there's SAA, and then click it, and then there could be something they could do at home or something like that, walk through. Because that's like the trend now is you do your workout at home. So I think at some point, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people doing that, but they will want to come in somewhere and like actually communicate with people and like be in an environment with other people around. But that's just like so nice for lifestyle in terms of you just hop on it and then follow whatever workout is. Well, I guess you have a library of workout to pick from. So
from a trainer's aspect, like what's the best parts about working? You kind of touched on some of it, but like working here.
Lifestyle is good right now with the schedule, getting to talk to people, getting to make the video stuff, like that creative part of me. Vacations are pretty good, how we could work that out. Like I could go for like a week or two. Yeah, I mean, freedom to do different things.
Kind of your own boss,
yeah,
so to speak.
Pretty much. Collaborating.
What type of people should apply here?
I feel like you need to be interested in other people to like really maybe stay here for a long time. If you're more just like right workouts, all about marginal gains for your clients, or like perfect form, or like you might get bored just watching people work out. So if you have like some interest in the person, I think you're definitely better off. Have some ability to write workouts and like writing workouts, like correcting technique, personable enough. I mean, to be fair, in terms of education, like you have a master's in exercise science, and what I have is just like experience working with you, like learning from you. So, I mean, if you have like the right personality, that's probably more important than having the highest level of education, because there's definitely stuff we could teach you, and there's probably stuff that you haven't learned in school that you'd end up learning here. I mean, you could talk to it more about like what you actually learned going through bachelor's of exercise science or
trades.
Masters.
You've done some certification too, but like, I guess to that point, certification is important just to like get a baseline knowledge, but then at some point you have to like real world what works. And so sometimes the classroom it's that protected environment where you don't have to sink or swim. You know, like that's one thing we've talked about over the years is like when you start a business, it's like, okay, now there's like a little bit of pressure, like you got to make it work. So like there's real world and then there's classroom. So sometimes the educational mindset, or that like, you know, you're waiting for that perfect moment and technique is perfect and everything's perfect. It's like these are real people that are in a rush, and like what's the dose and what's an effective, safe workout to get them where they need to go. Like there's real world scenario, and there's a lot to be learned from someone who's been doing it. So it's like, I think there needs to be some kind of like mesh of like laboratory classroom and like real world crash course. So like, I think some certification is better than others, and a formal education will give you a baseline preparation for that, but then you do have to have like an educational mindset. Yeah. Like I'm here to learn, and I'm never going to know it all. Man, I feel just as confused about some things as when I started. Like the more I learn, I feel like the less I know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm open. So like someone with a new perspective, like bring it on. I want to see where that fits in. And I still have that very like science-y mindset of like, here's a theory, let's go test it. You know, who does this work for? Who doesn't it work for? Like we still do that with our own workouts where you'll experiment on yourself. You'll tell me things that you're trying. I'll try it myself. And then now you take a sample size of 1, now you got a sample size of 2, maybe you give it to one guy in a protected environment, and then now you got a sample size of 3. So for me, I'm interested in that, the science aspect of it, and having the right personality traits, I'd say, is more important than any kind of box you could check. You know, I remember having a guy come in here and he had great credentials. He'd done this, he'd done that, but like I couldn't get past the dude's attitude. And it was like I could barely stand the way you're answering this question right now, like let alone work with you for. So there, you know.
Yeah.
If it's someone that you want to spend time with, that's probably someone that you're going to want to like work out with and learn from, and having like an open mindset. And it's interesting because you have an open mindset, easy to talk to. You know, it's not an open and shut book that you have the book and then these people need to pay for access to your book. You know, it's like, hey, we can all learn from each other. And Candace is kind of like that. Katie's like that. Everyone that's ever been through here is kind of like that. So those are the traits that I think are more important than any kind of certification or, you know, there's like real world.
Yeah. All right. So who should work here? Definitely like you got to be responsible enough to even like show up, depending, like if it's 5 a.m. you got to, you know, you're not going to miss. Willing to learn new stuff. Be open-minded about different things. Don't be like set in your ways. Probably someone that doesn't believe there's a one-size-fit-all exercise program. Understands the value like social media has in terms of like being willing to like film things or be on camera, share information that way. Good personality that could like work with younger kids or older adults, you know, have that broad ability.
You got to be able to communicate.
Yeah, communicate.
That was another thing that I was interested in you too. I feel like I can communicate in a one-on-one setting very well, or when there's a teachable moment. I feel like my communication's good. Mass communication, I feel like I struggle with, and that was something that you were good at right off the bat. Like, hey, you need to tell that to everybody, and do it in a newsletter format. Like, oh yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think that everybody would want to hear that little spiel. I thought that was just for this person right here. And so you kind of, and that's what we're doing now, is you're trying to mass communicate.
Yeah.
More people would want to hear this and kind of chunk it down into like easy to digest format.
So what is it? Competent, consistent, caring. So have some aspect of all three.
You said too about like responsible. One of the biggest things that I look for is, do people train a total stranger like they would train their mother or father? Do you take that kind of responsibility for your clients? When people just act like it's their client's problem, or like, no, you got to take a little more ownership than that. That person's coming to you and asking for your input, and you have to take that pretty seriously. Almost like a doctor, like do no harm. You have to tell them sometimes what they need to hear as opposed to what they want to hear. So there's a balance there too. And yet, you're taking responsibility for that person. So you can't just like wash your hands of it. Like if there's something that's irresponsible, you have to step in and ultimately do some things that are outside your comfort zone. And so that's also like an important trait, I think.